Untitled spring break.
Did you check with the see if you have the invitation? Did you check with them?
Thank you for the No, I'll check with them. Just want to make sure.
All right, good evening, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started. My name is Dennis Quisenberry III. Most of you know me. I'm the chairperson for the committee. You see a couple new faces, a couple of new returning faces. We're going to go around and just say a quick hello. We have some guests in the room. No need for the full description, just your name, and we'll move right along. Mr. Williams, start us off.
Sean Williams.
That's the short, never heard you.
Without a question, too.
There you go.
That's perfect.
Ken Burns.
We're very careful. I'm Rosa Valdez.
Nathan Watt.
Lubna Alam. Anne Reed.
Thank you. Panel, please.
Teresa Bowen. Kimber Wow.
Latanya Thomas.
Good to see everybody. I'm Jared Eady. I serve as our staff liaison, and joining us today, we also have our director of ESE and our principal who's representing the equity leads. So as I told you, every meeting there will be a different group here for that. So I just wanted to make sure I give them that due diligence in case there was any.
Betty Jordan, board liaison, and I apologize because we just finished a meeting in the boardroom, so I apologize for being late.
Brian Megan, on time, presenting another.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
What was the second?
All right. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Last meeting? All right. Do we have, I think you were the only new member, and I know you came last meeting, now you're an official member.
I'm an official member, yeah.
All right. Did you give a full introduction?
My name is Nathan Watt. I'm really happy to serve on the Equity and Diversity Committee as a disabled person. I'm a campaign strategist here in Lee County, and I'm really happy to be here. So,
Thank you.
Rosa.
Rosa?
Yes, yes, I'm Rosa Gomez. I am a teacher at Lee County High School, and I have 2 little ones in the system as well, so I'm very happy to be here and very involved in this process.
Thank you. And Ms. Jordan would like to introduce
Yeah.
the Heights Elementary Group.
Yeah, thank you. Tonight, I had the opportunity to go to Heights Elementary and see these fantastic kids. They were doing presentations everywhere throughout the school, and just, to me, they were just really amazing that you have 5th graders that care so much and did such a great job. So I reached out to Ms. Edwards, their teacher, to see if we could have some of the kids come and present to us, because a lot of what they were presenting has to do with what we're here for. So I'm gonna allow Ms. Michelle Edwards to introduce the kids. They're 2 different groups, so they're gonna share 2 different bits of information with you all. And you can come up here.
Okay,
Yeah, come right up front.
I'm gonna take my first group. While they're slowly walking in that direction, they are a little bit nervous. I said, please don't be nervous. You guys did this like a zillion times. While they're coming up, I will tell you, this is all spawned from what we call our global goals, which is through the UN. And we platform that off with our IB curriculum. So that's one thing they do in 5th grade. They do what's called an exhibition. And I'm gonna let them take it away. Should I introduce your names? Sure. I've got Sophie, Christopher, and I have Kate. I'm gonna let them talk.
I'm gonna set that up here, okay? Let's see if we can put this up here so everybody can see it. You already did this, so you know what you're doing.
Thank you.
Just do it.
Okay. We're gonna produce inequality. So this basically what reducing inequalities is it's equality for all different kinds of people. It doesn't matter your race, your gender, or how much money you get paid, because in the end, we're people. So to take part in trying to help this problem, we had 5 different problems in our group. And so the first one we had was, how does an average person think of someone with disabilities? And then, how do reduced inequalities happen? How is it transforming? What causes people to get treated differently? And how is reduced inequalities connected to someone's regular life? So my question was, how does an average person think of someone with disabilities? And my conclusion of my problem was that no matter what, you really can't change someone's view on disabilities. You can just give your opinion, and whatever you think is what matters, because you can make a change.
My problem, it started as like how it used to be and how it started transforming. So when reduced inequalities, it started becoming a big problem. There started becoming people who actually cared about it, and then started changing that.
My question is how does reduced inequalities connect to someone's regular life? And my conclusion to that is that like people want to avoid people who have disabilities, but really don't want to, because they can be some of the nicest and helpful people in the world. So, and then to take action in that, So basically, we went to the public library and we set up a survey on 3 questions that we thought was important to our topic, and here it is. So, our first question we asked was, if you had to choose between hiring a disabled person who had trouble walking but is amazing at the job, or an average person who isn't as good at the job, and then the second one was, do you support that men get paid more than women in the sports industry? And the majority of people said no. And then the question 3 was, if you found a company who supported getting rid of racism, would you join? Most people said yes. And then we did the survey again at my parents' coffee shop, and we set it up again, and we did the survey again. And then we also set up a donation stand, and we had people donate to LARC, and we ended up raising $36.
LARC is an organization that helps people in Lincoln County grow to their fullest potential. They support different people with disabilities, and yes.
And then we had a reflection, and so
The reflection after the project, we all thought that no matter whoever you are, you can be treated equally to anybody else.
So my reflection was like, no matter what, everybody should be treated equally, no matter your disabilities. It really doesn't matter, because in the end, we really are human. And the way we took action was we supported BART, and we actually really liked learning about the topic because it actually changed our perspective on different people and their problems. And then I thought that it was most important that I want to know about my topic is that we treated humans even if they had an inequality. And from learning all this, I just, like, again, it changed my perspective on how you can treat humans. Like, no matter what they look like or how they are treated, or I just think it's not fair to treat people differently, even if they're different. I don't know, I just feel strongly about it. So, and that's it.
Does anybody have any questions for them?
I have a comment. You guys are awesome. I mean, I wish we had that attitude throughout this community. We'd be a better community for it. Appreciate your presentation.
Well, you know
It's an
what?
outstanding job.
I had asked, I believe it was your group, I said, okay, so now that you did this, what are you gonna do now? They go, we're only in 5th grade.
Yeah.
They haven't already started,
Yeah,
so that was the
yeah.
beauty of this. Luna?
Were you encouraged by the fact that in your survey, most of the people said the right thing?
Yeah,
Was that accurate?
yeah, that was definitely.
Some people have their own opinions.
Yeah, like they have pretty good opinions. Like,
Although, do you support that men get paid more than women in the sports industry. One lady had a very good point. She said, well, if men's sports get watched more, shouldn't they get paid more? Yeah.
So for you going to school, for what, one day?
And all of you are fifth graders, right?
Yeah.
You're in fifth grade? Yeah. Great, thank you so much.
Awesome, awesome.
So one of the other cool things was we worked really hard on getting the community members to come in. So Lark actually did send one of their representatives, and the kids were able to give them the check and shake their hand. So it was really nice to have that opportunity for them. And I just have one more group. I will tell you a sad story. They did this wonderful job on their boards. Their teacher accidentally left them by the recycling bin. So you can imagine what happened to their boards. So they were a little perturbed by that. But I do have some pictures, and they can tell you for sure about their topic. So come on, girls. And theirs has a little bit of a different spin, and I'm gonna let them talk. So I have Lola, and I have Ophelia.
While I was researching, I found out that in many societies, boys are seen as who should be educated but less not. For example, in 2009, around 35,000 girls were out of school compared to 31,000 boys. I found that while researching that in 18 countries, husbands can legally protect the lives of women. Korea is encouraged so we can't for our action plan, we raised $110. We sold baked goods, and we donated that to the Pay Center. The Pay Center for Girls helps girls address their needs, and is one of the most effective programs that keeps girls out of juvenile detention. They create individual plans for girls to help them in the future. That's it.
Just real brief of what the other kids did and how you came to do all this.
Sure.
I mean, and there was hundreds of people there.
So there are, I will give you a number, there are 208 fifth graders. So my job is to work with fifth graders with the exhibition project. And what it is to me is an action project. So the students actually go in, they will tell you, these kids will tell you, I grilled them with research. They were not allowed to present me anything without having research to back it up. So a lot of them did a lot of research. And then from there, we connected back to the community, and we did a broad range. Is anybody familiar with the global goals? Have you heard of those to the UN? They're pretty amazing, and for our kids, it's great concept. This is why I bring them. But it has a wide range of all the topics, especially that we talked about. So I'll give you a hint. The one that was really big was life below water. So we had a lot of kids that loved to study about that. We had connections with Captains for Clean Water, and then good health. Quality education was a big one too. So I didn't get them to come in, but they did an awesome job. They set up a tutoring service, so that was amazing as their action. Yeah, there's a lot to see. Sustainable cities. So like I said, the kids choose between things they're interested in, and then from there it turns into research, and then they produce action.
And then how much money did they raise in total to approximately to give back to the community?
Approximately, I ended up calculating about $2,000. So that was pretty intense, but it was good.
And we really appreciate you being here. We appreciate the parents bringing them here and everything that you, because I know it took a lot of work, so, you know, you put in that time with them as well. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate you all's presentation, very nicely done. You present some good hands, as we can say.
That's what we want, right?
We're gonna give you guys a chance if you want to exit now,
Okay.
stay for the whole meeting. Or you can stay if you want.
I would love to, but I forgot. I have donated some literature. This is just one of their booklets that we created. I created that they could use as a guide. So if you're interested in looking at that, I'm just gonna let. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's the question, please?
Thank you so much.
Who's the representative you met?
What was the gentleman's name from
I was going to make sure you guys, I know him personally, he made a presentation of himself, so really great guy.
Thank you again. Thank you.
All right, next we're gonna have Mr. Megan come up and give us a presentation on student code of conduct. We are gonna use this information as a potential one of our recommendations for this year from EDAC. So keep that in mind as we listen to the presentation. There will be some time at the end to ask you some questions. You provided us some papers to comments. He's gonna give us some good ideas about how it is moving forward.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, Brian Mangan, happy to be here and have the opportunity to present to you about the Code of Conduct. It's an annual thing that we do as a district. Updated, it's a board-approved document. With the first bullet up there, that is our mission statement, but to put a final point on it, it's so that all of our students can meet or exceed our rigorous expectations and standards. And it does serve as our district policy to communicate. So with our vision in mind, we have developed this code of conduct, and it's been around for a good long number of years, to communicate to students clearly those behavioral expectations and ways to support our students so that they are making decisions that ultimately result in positive outcomes. Not always the case, but we want to set those conditions so that we can optimize those chances for that. It also provides our community members, our students, our staff, with a common definition of those state and local reported disciplinary codes. As we look forward into the year that we're getting ready to start on, we want to expand our restorative practices, and restorative practices are those social science conditions that study how to improve and repair relationships between people and community. And the purpose is to build those healthy communities, increase our social capital, decrease crime and antisocial behavior, repair harm, and restore relationships. A very important part about that is restoring relationships. When a student does wrong or commits a violation of the code of conduct, we want to increase the opportunity to bring that student back into the community of the school in a positive way that restores that damaged relationship, whether it's with a teacher, another student, or a staff member. We're also looking to add additional information on things like exceptional student education, 504, and Title IX. And to be more precise with Title IX, it's the Education Amendments Act of 1972, federal law, that states that no persons in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity. And that's also our attempt to increase the multi-tiered strategies of support, MTSS as we call it typically down here. MTSS grew out of the combination of response to intervention and positive behavior intervention support systems, or the old PBIS. So those are the things that we're looking to expand. However, the question is, what other revisions do we need? And that's what these charts, papers that are hanging on there with the sticky tack on it, copies of the code of conduct there, and a couple of markers in which to write. So everybody gets to do a little bit of arts and crafts, draw yourself a basic key chart up on this chart right here. And we're going to take about 10 minutes. I'll start the timer after everybody gets drawn up, and ask you to use the code as a reference. You might have already been very familiar with it, as some of the staff members or retired staff members in the room might be real familiar with it. And just looking for your feedback on what would make the code of conduct improved, or what do we need to keep about it that needs to stay in it? We should not be stepping away from it. Are there any questions about it? Well, yes, Dennis.
I have a question. Under the major changes from 19 to 20, it says disruption on campus, first major offense was consulting district, and then insubordination, disrespect, also says consult the district. My question, are these two at the same level of offense that they require a consult the district?
If you're talking about a disruption on campus, if it's a major one, something that's dramatically impacted the operation of the school or a good portion of the school operation, an example would be two students started fighting in the middle of a crowded cafeteria. That would be something that, would be considered major at a level 3, and we still would want them to consult. If it's something that's a borderline, maybe it was a hallway, maybe the hallway wasn't as crowded, video cameras are there to provide us that's a point where we want them to consult with somebody down here to discuss that. Now, the insubordination and disrespect, typically that's a level 2 type offense. However, there is cases where a student might be grossly insubordinate to an adult, throwing in a bunch of profanity, refusing to do, and not even the SRO's presence could help correct the student on the spot at the moment. And that's a case where, again, we would want them to consult with the district to talk about it and put a fresh set of eyes or in case ears on the situation.
So the insubordination, disrespect would be a more aggressive, like level 3.
Yeah, it wouldn't be something like, you just.
Now, the teacher in the classroom.
Yeah, change your seat, no, I'm not changing my seat, that's not it.
Okay.
A principal might come by and ask the student to do something, or another adult in the building, or the teacher, and the kid just gets real out of hand with it. I like that, profanity laced, refusing to do it, telling you what you're gonna do for them, all that type of stuff. I mean, it does happen in reality, it does happen.
I was only asking just because of the process of, the discipline. If something's happening and you gotta stop the process of discipline and how to different way for response, and go back and forth, and all that time elapsed between the actual action. So I was just curious of.
And typically what happens is when they're dealing with it in the moment, they're dealing with it in the moment. They're not gonna call over to the district until the student has been, brought into some type of compliance with the school. Maybe they went down to the IS room, or maybe they went to a de-escalation spot. Maybe they have reported with somebody eventually to a student affairs office. And once that has calmed down, before the principal might, react in the heat of the moment, and say, well, that's it, I'm gonna send this kid to, pump the brakes, call somebody, let's talk about it, let's have that conversation. But in the moment, no, it's more of the after action.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you have peer review boards?
Yes, we do. We have a couple of peer review boards. One of them is the Success Academy, just Success Academy Review Committee. It's when a student commits an offense and the principal sits down and holds a hearing on the student or administrative review, and they want to recommend the student to attend the Success Academy, but the level of offense when you look in there is not severe enough where it's an automatic send from the school, like the student brought drugs and tried to distribute them on campus. That wouldn't be a subject to review. However, if the student did something with the insubordination level, and it was repeated gross insubordination, and then they would come and sit down with a committee of individuals from the district office, ESC services, psychological services, counseling services, intervention support, and there's also members of the principal groups, sitting principals that sit down, and then the principal would come in and say, well, we held a school-based hearing, I told the parent that I was going to recommend the student's success, but it's going to come through the START committee first. So they review the situation and they look at the whole of the student. What is their academic?
That's pretty far down the line though, isn't it? I mean, when you recommended someone for alternative learning.
No, because we hold them weekly, so we meet with them on a weekly basis. It's not, they're not waiting weeks for something like that.
So these aren't for level 1, level 2 offenses, these are.
This would be level 2 offenses that, and when you look in the code and you flip through some of the pages, you'll see some of them that if a student did something repeated, they might be on there for a couple of times that they are conducting some type of misbehavior that will get them to the point where the principal sat down and said, look, we've done all these strategies, we've tried working with the student and the family, and the student continues to behave like this, and we're kind of at our end of the rope. Now, the committee might sit down and say, well, I think there's a little bit more rope that you can work with the student, and the student is referred back to some additional supports for the school and the student. On other occasions, the school might have done just about everything they could possibly do with resources at hand, and the student has proven to be a candidate for the Success Academy, and the committee may approve that recommendation for the Success Academy. Now, the other appeals process that we have is the District Alternative Reassignment Committee. If a student commits a level 3 offense, something pretty serious, and they are recommended for the Success Academy, but the parent and student wants to appeal it, then they can put in an application for appeal, and we hold those weekly also. And they're set up, and the committee consists of me as the facilitator. We have one of our staff attorneys that sits in on it, and we have 3 voting members. Those are 3 current principals that are running schools right now, and they sit down, and when you come into we call it DARAC, when they come into that, the student has an opportunity to explain why they're appealing their placement at the Success Academy. The school then explains their portion of it, and then we come back to the student for a second time for them to answer anything else that the school might have brought up, and an opportunity to comment upon something that they might not have thought about when they gave their first presentation. As you can imagine, some of the students are a little bit nervous the first time they stand up there to address the committee. And then once the presentations on both sides is finished, the room is cleared, the committee remains, and they debate the situation, and then they either decide to support the school, mitigate the reaction of the consequence, or support the student.
So there are no student body representatives in that?
Not on the data, no, not on the software. Yes, sir.
I've just been browsing through this and I think it's all very good. But what I hear out there, I have no little support for the next difference economic, is that sometimes the way these rules are written, they kind of sometimes conflict with cultural values and just be applied discriminatory, let me put it that. In other words, we're just getting the benefits a lot more very important to live. And some people say, no fact about it. That's probably the way it is. For example, $0. Maybe a kid is just kicking another kid because that's what they do.
Right.
I don't know how much you bring in the cultural aspect of when applying it, because I agree, it's supposed to be done uniformly, but we must move a little bit more.
Absolutely, and when you're sitting there with 120 schools and you throw in all the charters and everything else like that, there is going to be, just to be honest, there's going to be a variance in the way people apply. However, that's why we're doing trainings with our staff and our administrators and our teachers, not only with the restorative practices, with culturally aware teaching, professional development, teaching, but professional development, so that our staff can continue to grow and expand their minds in regards to the wide variety of cultures that are coming into our classrooms on a daily basis and into our schools as well. And yes, we have looked at the data, and if you take out something like the out-of-school suspension, historically, yeah, we've had a problem with it in this district and suspending students disproportionately. However, the last year we have seen a noticeable decline because of some of these efforts with professional development and more awareness and a better approach to implementing discipline inside the school. I'm not going to say it's perfect, it's not there yet, but it is moving in the right direction. We did a presentation to the board back in January about where the OSS data was, and we have seen a decline in some of those disparate groups. And so far, that trend is holding steady in the most recent kind of oil stick check that we just did this past week. And then we'll be giving a full report again at the end of the year to the board as well.
Would you have some data to that effect about?
Yes.
Heavily black kids, or
Yes.
Hispanic kids?
What I'll do is I'll email it to Latanya, and I'll make sure that it's ready for you guys to review at the next meeting. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are we ready to discuss in our tables, the T-charts?
Yep, you got to draw.
You want to join the table, Mr. Williams?
Unless you want to join somebody. But yeah, we'll run the timer because I know you guys are on the schedule, so we'll run it for about 10 minutes. If you can just put that information on there.
I do. I'll come over.
Yeah, I'll put the code out there. I posted everything.
We can have four, everyone else.
We don't have a code of conduct on the table. Wait, is it right there?
See, now look where I'm.
Yeah, there it is.
There it is.
I know.
Well, I think.
This is a lot
I
to
think
take
you
in
got
in like
emailed to
5
us.
minutes.
Carl, come on, Carl.
Especially when.
It was right there.
You've never seen this before. We're gonna have a child.
No, this is the book from Height to the left. Is that it right there?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was underneath Carl's stuff.
These are books from Height to the left. You all left, so. She only left 4, so I just.
We'll put it back. All right, t-shirt.
Because otherwise, no one knows the impact.
Alright, so I guess we'll go with this.
Oh, it's here.
I don't know.
Hey, you know, I said that's why I'm
So I want to identify first what one's mental, just like, what does the word life mean? For me, word life is like a future place. You want to achieve that in the future. That's what I felt. What I want is something that can go right now. And I know that's what I might be wrong, but that's what I did some years. Of course, what I want to do, what I like is really to have that good communication for our students, not only the teachers,
That's right.
I'm not sure if we don't have it at the higher education level, diversity classes, I think, on the teachers meeting.
I would like some of
Something like,
from 1920 to 2021.
it could be anything, it could be somebody who's, you're technical savvy, and it could be a person that's, that's a diversity.
So I would look at the changes. Right, look at the changes.
The ones is,
What you think of the changes between the 2 years?
for right now, we have schools that are graded or rated as, let's say, A+ or F.
Yeah.
And
So you can't understand.
what scores they got in the ACT or SAT or something, and that would
And when they go
be
there,
A+. But we want something similar. Discipline, something similar. And what are the different factors?
Yeah, one thing that I keep on of it, just look at the test scores, you look at how that tracks
or
goes to college, I mean, goes to high school, because success means a whole lot of different things for a lot of people, you know? And so, putting a focus on making sure that the child is successfully equipped coming out of high school to be able to tackle whether it's college or going into their first job or an apprenticeship. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
That's also something, but I concentrated on diversity. It could be some other factors too. How can we quantify? Or, how can we
Oh, so you're saying that things not being recorded or they're not being.
not only because of science scores, how they prepare the students, how they, how the students react in situations.
Right.
Is it 100%?
Right.
Why?
Yeah, I don't know.
What kind of factors I need to
that are that's
are diverse students when they graduate from school, are they successful or they're failing, or they end up in jail? That's kind of things that I want to evaluate my students, not only A+, That's what
There's a
I'm.
very concerted effort in the district that to, when they've made those major changes.
As far as
disabilities or
yeah, I gotta.
14 minutes, she said she had two suspicions this year. It's progress. The middle school kids are.
Probably relevant. Challenge.
That's all. Middle school kids are middle school kids. I'm
Books
saying
study,
that.
Crystal Legion, that sort of stuff.
You're about to.
So as you guys are working through
What happened is
the packet that we were given, is with the cliff notes of what's changing in here. So I would focus more on the changes.
Okay.
And looking at the changes that you like. And then on one side, consider it things that you've heard people are liking or things that you've heard people are concerned about. Those concerns themselves into a one to make the changes. Right. So you got the major changes, right, so you got the major changes, and then you got the 2021 unit. So I would look between those two for the upcoming year. Think about the things that you like, the things that you think you should be concerned about, or the things that you want to see change. Right, because this document is too much to just right now. Right, so that's more of a cliff notes of what's changing in there. Yeah. Yeah. How you doing tonight? You didn't get enough the last time, you'll come back for some more?
So I was reaching at those guys.
Well, the district oversees them, they answer to their, also to their.
Regarding this offense, they
What's the difference between a disruption of campus and insubordination / disrespect?
This is like, meaning we like what they is been doing, or we like
So we
some
don't
changes.
consider it disrespecting a teacher and disruption on campus or classroom areas. My question was what is the major difference between disruption on campus and insubordination / disrespect? Because I would almost consider any time that you disrespect a teacher, that the teacher has to stop and deal with it, that's a disruption of their teaching time. So I would almost clarifying the difference between disruption on campus and what insubordination / disrespect means, so that people are very clear that, you know, they do this, then it's going to result in this. So.
Culturally responsive to
We have about 2 minutes left. About 2 minutes.
I like that they have. That's good. Yeah. We want to review on.
I will fill out petitions all day long, I don't have a choice.
Yeah, I got one question.
I do like the options for drug use as possession over there.
Basically, you know, when
We're changing the world just
Well,
because,
that is a
just because
part
a
of,
kid
like,
has one time one application with a bad substance, it doesn't make them a bad kid, it just means they get one application with them, you know? So treating it as such as, like, you're not a bad kid, you just need to deal with things, you know?
Or maybe it was you got involved out, they saw that, and some you brought some alcohol in. Yeah, that's for 20 days, and you So there's more flexibility, and that was one of the
You know, we had kids come over there, got the knife in the back of the truck, under the fishing in it, but she says it got
That is their graduating from the state that fell out.
Yeah, you just got one, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, check it out.
Oh, I'm sorry, right, so 504s, those are when you normally deal with disabilities of children. Clarification as to what are they, what's the process going to be like dealing with 504 when it comes to a child with a disability that is having multiplication class with are you a distinction between, is it a mentally disabled child that they're dealing with here, or is it just a physically disabled child that's using, you know, because as just a physically disabled person, you could have acted out and then treated like a mentally disabled. When it's an important distinction that is mentally there, they're just acting out and they need to take the problem down to the source of disability. Does that make sense?
Care. So, what we're looking at, and what we're doing, our proposal that you're free here is, we're looking at supporting this. I know you know maybe we're on the level two, but like from over 100, under 500 to level two, now over 500 to level 50.
504s are like IEPs. So you get an IEP or a 504 if you have a special learning needs in school. So like for me, I had an IEP because individualized education plan, right? So
I know we're burning up time, I mean.
It's all right. One more minute.
One more minute, guys? Any questions? I just don't want to overrun the meeting, you know, so.
But, so anyway, I had an IEP because all I did in school was extra duties, an elevator class to get up and down the elevators. That was the only thing that I needed. You know, for other kids, the IEP can be as complicated as having to take special courses in school, having to have extra time on tests, extra time on this and that. You know, 504s, from what I understand, are IEPs are mostly for just said disability students. Individualized educational plan, IEP, yep. And 504s deal with kids that don't necessarily have a disability, but they still need individual attention when it comes to learning curves. Like my sister, she had dyslexia, so she would have 504, but that was something that she couldn't get over. It wasn't a disability so much as it was a learning curve for her to get to where she is when it came to first and second grade. I don't know the statute. That's a very broad analysis of what those two are, and I could be misrepresenting exactly what a 504 is, but I know exactly what an IEP is. I had to deal with that for 12 years. I don't know how they work. Which one? Individualized educational plan.
All right, everyone.
It's just on the table here.
In the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and wrap up and share out. Just quickly go over our list. I'm sure there's more than willing volunteer from each group that would love to share their list with everyone.
Oh, yeah. Kinda.
Is there a group that likes to go first?
Well, I'll go first.
All right.
So on our likes column, we talked about liking that we have a good education that's focused on our diversity here, especially diversity when it comes to the code of conduct for students. We also like the increased options for drug use and possession, because just because a child gets involved with a drug paraphernalia or alcohol, it doesn't make them a bad kid. It just means that we've got to correct that action. As far as the wants go, we were talking about better quantifying the success of the school beyond just test scores. So that way, a school is not bad just based on the fact that they have bad test scores. There's a whole lot of different things that go into that. But then also clarification between the disruption on campus, the DOCs, and the insubordination and disrespect, and clearly laying out what the penalties for each are. Because we felt that DOCs and NISs, they kind of almost feel the same, because if you're disrespecting a teacher in the middle of class, you are technically disrupting the class. And then lastly, just clarifying how to deal with 504 students and their behavioral issues, specifically for disabled students that might be acting out in a class, how to deal with a mentally disabled student that's acting out in class compared to a physically disabled student, and being able to adjust appropriately and gauge appropriately how to respond to that student.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll take your paper.
And what I'll do after, I'll put this in something, when I send you that information as well, I'll send you a large list from everybody's group.
Yeah, next group. Try to take volunteers. I would like me to want to tell you volunteers. Here you go.
Yeah, for the likes, the data shows progress in the code of conduct being applied equally, and we like that. We feel that's a great thing. It should always be data driven, changes to that. Zero tolerance on violence, bomb threats, and others. This we emphasize, like what is in the book. That should be made. Support system, restorative practices for students returning from Success Academy. They need that, and as we are talking here, that stigma sometimes comes back when they leave the Success Academy and coming back to the classroom. There should be some greater support need for that, and that's important. That stigma. That's all for the like. For the one side, we need the peer review students. That's important. Peer review, working with the students, just like the students we have here, we think it's good too. We need to focus a little bit more on the review of the zero tolerance policy. We think it's sometimes foreign financial here. Cultural responsiveness should be included. There should be greater cultural responsive training for the teachers to understand that the teachers are from. Sometimes voice fighting is not a fight. We're not encouraging it, but the check at the basis of a conversation and good. Empathy, what is in place for students experiencing homelessness, we should have a little bit more for those kind of kids who are suffering in different ways. And also, we feel there is the issues, NY, VAT, all that, all this stuff. There should be greater emphasis on the instructive in the book. The value like this to just to block everyone.
Got it. Okay.
All right?
Thanks.
We get a name?
Yes.
And then the only thing I would add to that is focus more on the impact rather than intention of these things, right? And have the impact reviewed by peers. That's all.
Thank you.
All right, now last table.
Okay, since I'm outnumbered 3-1.
I'll speak.
Blacks, we like the committees that you guys have formed. We like the fact that there are tiers and levels of offenses. We like that there is a prevention center now, instead of kids going straight to Success Academy, they go to the academy door. We like mental health, and those are the things we like. We also, the wants is we would like to see a reflection, more of a reflection as kids leave, so that they will be able to sit down and put how they feel on their way out, so you have some idea if what they've gone through has helped them a little bit. And then we talk about sensitivity trainings. I understand Jared has already done some of that, so we'd like to see a little bit more of that.
Thank you very much.
I get a beat?
And
You rate me on the curve.
This committee is one of several committees that are groups of folks that we're gathering input from. We've had community forums. The last week was over at Cape High. Later on this week, Thursday, we're gonna be over at the Carrie Robinson Center. Next month, we're gonna be at Sunshine Elementary. We've moved throughout the community doing that sort of stuff. Of course, we're getting feedback from our board members. We've had students, the Student Advisory Committee, and also Success Academy groups of students have had the opportunity to review and provide input. Parents really at the communities and organizations, or any of you who are parents here. Administrators are asked to reply to an online survey. And we are also meeting with our SPALC and TALC bargaining units to gain feedback and support staff as well. Our goal is to create a revised draft something that we can bring to the board later on this month. It's not going to be a lock-in. It's going to be showing where we're at, what type of feedback we're getting, and also a chance for the board to give us some directions directly. Then provide further revisions at the school board briefing. That's the one where we're kind of really pretty much ready to put a bow on it. Get their final feedback, bring it to cabinet, and then bring it to the board. Our target date is right now to do that. Are there any questions? And these are the folks who are leading the charge.
Something I just want to emphasize is the positive aspects of the evening. That should always be emphasized. And number two, whatever we do, we try as much as possible to keep the student in the class.
Yes.
We ask minimum disruption to the class, if possible. Sometimes it may not be, but keep the student as much as possible in the class.
Understood. Thank you.
I just had a question, and this is just from my experience in the school system. What happens if a student is bullied and bullied and bullied and bullied and bullied, and then all of a sudden they just lash out and go all whoop butt on whoever approaches them incorrectly? And it's the system failing to identify and correct that action of bullying throughout the time, and then this student all of a sudden is lashing out. I mean, I don't know where that ends up.
I see what you're saying. I mean,
Because there are some mitigating circumstances there.
there's always that, and that has to be weighed into any situation and when the due process is afforded to the student. If a student is being bullied and doesn't raise the flag to us, nobody picks up on it, whether it's a teacher, support staff member, parent, if nobody gets that, for whatever reason, nobody knows that this kid is being bullied, and then he lashes out, it's gonna be hard for that. But if the student reports it and the school doesn't do its due diligence of doing the full-on bullying investigation, which is a documentable thing, it's the Jeffrey Johnson Stand Up for All Students Act. That is something that is, the report is done, the intervention factors are in place, and that report is forwarded down here to positive behavior supports inside of the student services. If it continues or the bully doesn't get it and doesn't stop, the bully faces consequences. But if the victim can't take it anymore, hopefully they avail themselves of the scholarships. And that was something that came out of the Southwest Florida area and is approved by the state, which affords the student basically to say, hey, look, I'm in a bad situation. I don't believe this is going to stop. I want to get out of this school and I want to go somewhere else. It's parent work with the school.
Well, the alternative to that is that they could take their own life.
Well, that's why communication, relationship building, and interventions are key. Because if the student, and I'm not going to sit here and say out of almost 100,000 students, I would pick up on every single last one of them and what they do. Yeah, it's a real possibility, and that's why the mental health aspect of it has become charged to the front. That's why when we have a student who is involved in bullying and whatnot, we ask the student, the student welfare team to gather at the school, whether it's a social worker, intervention specialist, to see what they can do to help the student, and also help the bully overcome their misbehavior.
As someone who has been bullied, I understand that you don't want more bullying. And if you rat on someone, you're going to be bullied more.
And that's a very real issue inside the social dynamics of youth today. I don't want to be a snitch, and I don't want to be adhered to that. But at some point, are you willing to continue living your life in these situations? But if you reach out for help, and we don't do our due diligence to help you, then yeah, that's on us as a school and the school district.
There's a whole process for what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And if they follow the process, then it's able to be picked up on. But I think the biggest thing is communication and informing people, and not necessarily teachers. Another student comes, it's up to that principal to investigate and make sure the right things
being taken place. But the school district has really placed a high emphasis on bullying. They've made a whole document, a whole list of things that we should do in the process for that. So they've taken place,
the investigation form is pretty extensive. In fact, the bullying, is, every 3 years it must be reviewed and updated, and it's in the process of it. I believe it's 4.14 that the Department of Equity is working on right now, and that should be going up for board approval of the renewed policy. So it is a very serious thing, and you're right, the consequences could be dire, whether it's with one student or many. I'm sorry.
I just want to make a comment that I have 2 kids in Fort Myers High School, and one of them is a senior. And one day I got a call from the counselor, and she said that your son, some of his friends came to the office and said that he was feeling down. And, I want to make sure everything is all right at home. And I was very impressed that, they took, the children took the initiative, his friends went up and talked to the counselor. I don't know if that's a formal system or an informal system, but I thought that was great. That they could pick up on that emotion and then, get back to me. And I think the counselor herself talked to my son separately to make sure he's okay.
It's a version of see something, say something. And right now, our high schoolers are going through a mental health march where they're getting the state required training right now. I don't know when the elementary schools did their training. I know it was a longer timeline. Middle schools also.
Schools had the option of starting after Christmas break. So depending on the grade level, some lessons are 5 weeks, some are 6 weeks. So it just depends on the grade level. So it goes over all those things as well.
So I think it's working. The students are encouraged to speak up for their.
My daughter's in high school.
for
She
their
came home and
friends
talked about it as well. So
It's
it
the
is.
social emotional learning component of it. It is built into the training. And this is the first year we're going through it. I'm sure it'll be revised and fine-tuned going forward. But yeah, the goal is, as many adults as we have, you still think about 13,000 total employees, 100,000 students. You're going to need those 100,000 eyes on each other and build that empathy so that they stand up and look out for each other. And that's a great example. So thank you for sharing.
This might be a non-issue, I don't know if this has ever come up, but let's say that you start an investigation where a kid says that they're being bullied. The investigation comes to prove that they're not really being bullied, they're just having social issues. Have you set up any type of programs or after school for that student?
Any claim that comes in, it's going to either be classified as bullying confirmed, basically, or unconfirmed or unsubstantiated is the actual term. We even record that and report that information up to the state, the number of cases where somebody says, oh, I'm being bullied, and maybe it was just a disagreement out on the playground between 2 kids, and the kid chose to use the term bullying. However, you do worry about kids who cry wolf. And not to be trite about it, but those students need to be worked with also, because that's not the proper way to seek attention or redress of your grievances. I couldn't sit up here and say that there are a bunch of formalized programs at all the schools. I just don't have that information at my command right now.
Okay,
I'll look into it, and part of my feedback to Dennis and all will include what I can find out about that. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Megan.
Thank you, folks.
So as we move forward, I would like us to give Mr. Megan and his department some time to look at the suggestions that we've made. He's going to take those things. And I would also suggest between now and our next meeting to look through the code of conduct, see if we have any other questions or concerns about the code of conduct, so that at our April 13th meeting, we can consider giving our vote of approval for the code of conduct coming up. Again, our next meeting is April 13th. That's our last meeting. So I'd like to have some suggestions to give to the board. This is a hot topic for this school year, and I know that our approval and input on this issue is important to the district and the board. That leads us into our next item on the agenda. That's board recommendations for the year. Typically, as a committee, we offer some suggestions to the board for the upcoming school year. I think one of our finest examples so far is Edie himself. Edie suggested a position, and that came to fruition with Mr. Edie and has grown with Ms. Torres Nunez. And so the things that we suggest and we put out there are listened to by the board and valid things. I put 2 on the list, considering the fact that if we use the code of conduct as one, And we have 2, that gives us 3 to give to the board for the upcoming year. That's kind of the basis that we used last year to work on issues that we came into this year. That led to the different presentations we had throughout the year, was from our previous recommendations. So as a group, I would like us to, you can stay in the same table, switch tables if you want, come up with a couple more recommendations that we can suggest. We can take the list, break it down to 2, vote on our favorites for this evening, and then use those to move forward. I'd like to spend our last meeting working on our recommendations to finalize them, put them in the right words, so that we can present it to the board. So I'd like to spend the next few minutes just working on some ideas to get ready, to focus us in for our last meeting, to have the 3 ideas to flesh out and solidify for our recommendations.
You had some recommendations last year. And some of them are going to be recommendations.
We
had
worked,
some recommendations and then but some things that were guidelines we had last year.
yes.
Is it all completed?
So some of the ones that we suggested last year were part of the big plan that was put out.
There was some problem we never fully implemented.
Right, one of the ones that we had was the year-to-year growth in minority teachers. That information has not been provided yet, we're waiting on that. The one we had about peer communication, we talked about last meeting, I did present to the board, actually this morning. And so they are aware of that issue, and shouldn't say issue there, aware of our recommendation, and that was put into record. And I think the other one, we had parent communication, we had, I think it was a training, the multicultural training for the teachers. That was a part of training for teachers this year. I know I took it myself, as part of our in-service training when we start the school year. There is a multicultural presentation that we have to complete and be certified on to start the school year as part of our annual training as teachers.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
for the point, on Scott D. Lewis' point, your goal last year, as far as the updates, you all did go through, and from the HR goals, you all did provide 3 recommendations, and through Ms. Jordan, HR did provide feedback to those recommendations. So after the Lancaster was at the last meeting, all of your conversation as far as the recommendation parts of it go have been addressed or responded to. So the 3 goals was create a survey for newly hired teachers, create a survey for individuals who identify but do not accept placement, and create a survey for newly hired teachers. And at the chairman's direction, that data I did have shared with you all prior to last month's meeting.
It's in that package.
So everything that you all talked about last year has been addressed or touched, Dr. Ewing.
So, any questions? This is kind of wide open. Us as a committee, we've had a number of presentations this year. Yes, I'm just saying, we've had a number of presentations this year, so you have an opportunity to recommend on anything we've heard this year, any questions or concerns you may have. Yes.
The end of last year, we had a number of teachers that came in and they had grievances because they were fired from their position without without due diligence from the school district, and majority of them were of a diversity background. We did not hear anything about what happened to these teachers. Been about a year now.
Right.
And have you heard anything, Dr. Peter?
Not officially, I've heard when few teachers are known, but nothing officially.
They came here and they talked, so I would like to suggest that we also have a chance to at least look at some of the grievances that are being submitted in general.
From what I understand, they're able to come, anyone can come and give public comment about their grievances. We don't really have any authority over what goes on with their process. And no one else, they're not able to even speak on what's going on with their process, conflict of interest. So we can invite people to come in and air their grievances. We just can't, we can listen. That's where we are.
But if I say I said official, I never had anything. I think that brings up my mood something very important. We need a kind of survey for diversity and inclusion, because those are minority teachers who are feeling like this is a bigger issue. We are the only ones who are whistleblowers and we suffer like this, you know. I think we need a survey to see what is our diversity climate for our teachers. Or staff.
That sounds like a great recommendation for you right
Yeah,
now.
I think that follow, because for them, it was okay, but.
They were really, I mean, there was a situation where, I mean, there were not one person, there were like maybe 3 or 4 that came.
There's two individuals, and I think as it was shared at that moment, because I know, for example, one of the cases that you're talking about, Doctor, that was something that was being, the individual was attempting to go through the process that would have ended up in some sort of litigation or challenge to what the district was finding at that moment. So because that being very litigious, it precluded anyone, especially from legal, to come in and talk about what was going on in the case that was pending. And then I know the other individual that you're talking about with that one, also shared some information and came to the board, but because of the nature of, if you have a complaint or a conversation, if that ends up being something that will eventually end up at the board level again, and you have the board member here, or with the conversation of something that was being currently investigated, the district was in a position to not officially respond because it was not anything officially as a response to it. I think a way the committee was able to at least have some leverage for those 2 teachers you're talking about in particular is establishing an Office of Civil Rights and Equity Compliance that this committee approved, that's still working out the kinks, but trying to have an office that's completely dedicated. But if I recall the discussion from the last meeting, the concern and shared by the committee and also talked about with the board, and then the suggestion from this level was because it was something that was being currently investigated, no one was at liberty to share until the investigation was officially concluded, all the way up to whatever appeals process the employee might have had.
We did have a presentation from
Right.
the new person in that position, the civil rights. I don't think it's titled civil rights attorney, but he's an attorney dealing with those issues.
Civil rights and equity compliance.
Compliance, that's what it's looking for. Okay, so it is currently 7:10. We're gonna try to get out of here on time tonight. So.
That's what, 8:30?
Try to get out here at 7:30 tonight. So I'm gonna give you 10 minutes to talk. We'll do 5 minutes of open discussion, and then we'll still try to get out of here by 7:30.
I already have a recommendation.
Does anyone need paper?
Gender barriers, policies, systems, and then whether those students are set for when they graduate to either go out and live their life or go to college. I've done extensive research on disability as it relates to high schools or schools in general and their job rates. Job rate among disabled people is staggeringly high when it comes to employment. Way staggeringly high when it comes to people that do not even participate in the labor force. I think half of that has to do with parents, but there's also, they've done studies where there are parents that are not sufficiently happy with the way that their schools treated their disabled child, but set them up for future success, either live independently or acquire a job after high school.
Like don't feel they require physical strength. sitting on a computer or something.
Oh, yeah.
No, you have to walk,
And I've got,
2 miles a day, you go up and down the stairs, up and down the That's the job. It's still required that.
and it's not, it's not a full responsibility placed on the school system or the parents, because it's also a business's job to give equal opportunity for a person who just hasn't qualified to work in a certain position to a disabled person, because they are just
Right. The insurance and the workers' comp and things like that.
I found a study where they took different people, one is disabled, say they're in a wheelchair, like me, and one is not disabled. And both of them have the same exact resume. One person walks in with a resume, they have a 69% chance of getting the interview out of that, okay? So decent. If they roll in a wheelchair, 50% chance. That's the same exact resume, it's just a perception of, oh, they're rolling, they don't know how to do their job, you know? So that's something that businesses have to change as well, but I think that we can start at the school district level. One human thing, and I don't know if this has changed in the last 10 years that I've been out of school, but relatively close enough. When I was in school 10 years ago, they liked to treat mental disability almost the same as physical disability.
Okay, so this, what we were skating is policy that
I just want to make sure that.
have to do with it.
We'll warm up to it. Oh, yeah. But I think that if we were
That's
to
about us, and we don't have to.
properly identify, one of the things that I think that we should be asking is not what can you do, what can't you do?
I
Focus on what they can't do and treat as if everything else is fine. Just that's more focused. We ask them what can you do, it's like, well, I can do a lot of things, you miss this area, you miss that area, and you're getting way too broad on the child's education at that point, because you're saying, well, tell me all they need to do. Okay, give me an explanation of what you think is, like, because I can play basketball or I can sit at the table, that's something I can't do. If you ask me what I can't do, I can't walk well, I can't throw well, so stand up when I'm
That's not calling it kind of black.
I have to use the bathroom.
I've got an accent.
They just ask us 3 questions, it makes the IEP a lot easier than saying, okay, what can you do? And it's like, well, I gotta sit there, do this, I do that, I do this. Just my idea, I don't want to take an entire time, but that's just something I think that I have my.
And I'd say, yes. In the schools, you don't have business orders.
But that's more of the basis of
Is that the one that you?
Well, that's the thing about the disabled community, too, is they're 3 times as likely to create and own a small business as the average American.
I'm talking about
But yet, we got 73% not in the labor force.
heterosexual
Or disabled. That's not unemployed. Unemployed is a completely separate number. Unemployed is 8% nationally.
Yeah, we don't have that.
That's what it is right now for our soaring economy at like 3.4% whatever it is right now, which is great.
So we have
Except if you're disabled. It's really hard to get and maintain a job. There's a lot of other factors that go into that as well, but we can start here. Maybe that's what we ripple effects.
And I don't
They're not stopping.
So that's, for me, as long as you can, they have some, and it's for education
It's for your business too, because at the, and that's something that I think is important to realize from a parent perspective is, if you're gonna go into a business, you've gotta be qualified for whatever you're going to try to go and get a job with. You can't just get the job because I'm disabled, they need the numbers to say they hired a disabled, but if you're going for a construction job and you're a realtor, sorry, you're not getting a construction job, because I can't climb a roof. And I wouldn't expect a construction owner to hire me because unless I'm the secretary and I'm sitting at the computer, I can't.
2-minute warning.
And sexual education.
Oh, it can, I just use wheelchairs as a broad example, but there's 69 different types of disabilities. And then all the different subsets, and that's, you could be blind, you could be deaf, you could things that doesn't preclude them from or exclude them from being able to do construction. But as long as they can get the instruction, go do it correctly, Yep.
And the problem is, some of the jobs close, and with a certain percentage of 100%. But it's still included.
Yeah, yep.
There should be a minute, sometimes they go on the roof, they fall down, broken an arm or something. And I go in they are
For
No, I'm not trying to blame anybody, so.
Should we become business owner, this is how we should treat.
Exactly.
All right, we're gonna come back together. We're gonna discuss what we came up with. What I would like you to do is read your recommendations out loud enough for Ms. Thomas to write them down. Once everyone has read the recommendations, we're gonna go through the list and we're gonna pick the 2 or maybe 3 that we wanna focus on for next meeting. We wanna kind of get ready for presentation to the board. All right. So as usual, anybody like to go first? Okay. If you go first, you gotta be quick. That's just for you, Sean.
All right, start the clock. Diversity climate survey is our number 1 thought and recommendation. Islamophobia mitigation strategy is our second. And 21st century health and sexual education is our third.
You said health and sexual education?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions about their recommendations? Ms. Thomas, you got those? Thank you. Say.
So, it's even stickers all day. That's like a second sticker.
So we didn't really, we came up with some topics, more so what we thought, not necessarily the recommendation to go with the topic.
Okay.
And a lot of this we had talked about before, so diversity for the recruitment of teachers, more equality with student assignment, expanding the language options for informational messages that go out, and then increasing parental involvement of those of diverse cultures.
Okay. Can I make one comment on yours? I know they're working on the school rezoning as far as the student assignment is concerned. So it is out there in the works. Elementary. So there is some progress being worked on for that.
We don't have 17 choices now.
So, the proximity plans we've been working on to try to get it more evened out. And I know it's a big plan, but it helps with busing, with kids going to the schools in the neighborhood and some different things that are happening. So it is being started. All right, back table.
So we really only talked about like basically one thing, but that was the focus on ensuring that there is a differentiation between mental disability and physical disability in regards to how the student is treated and handled, specifically with 504s and IEPs within the school. But then also looking at a focus into how we better equip those individuals, whether they are mentally or physically disabled, for life outside of high school once they graduate. The numbers are shockingly high for the amount of parents that are dissatisfied with the way that their child gets a public education with a disability. And I just want to be able to help raise those numbers so that way parents are more satisfied with how their public schools are equipping their child to live either individually by themselves or equipping them for college or a job outside of high school.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we have our list. I think we should narrow that list to at least 3, 2 to 3 at the most. Considering that we have the student code of conduct already out there. So maybe move our list to 2. We have a total of 3 to move forward with. Ms. Thomas, would you read back what we have?
You want us to read that? That's going to now. I thought you wanted to read it in the last page.
So what we're going to do is she's going to read the list, and we're going to pick the ones that we want to focus on for the last meeting. Yes.
Okay, so for Mr. Williams' table, diversity climate survey, Islamophobia, and the 21st century health and sexual education.
Okay.
Those are the 3 for this table.
All right. Is there any one of those topics that we know that we do want of those 3? Is there a motion to choose one? Okay.
You want me to
Yep, go to the second table.
Diversity for recruitment for teachers, increasing parent involvement, and expanding, Ms. Corey,
Language options.
language options.
I think you missed the student assignment.
Student assignment, yeah. Okay, and for Mr. Watt's table, focus on ensuring indifference on mental and physical disability in school and how to better equip them to be ready for college or for work.
Yes.
I would like to speak in favor of the diversity climate survey for teachers, administrative, and students. I think that it would be really good to hear from the students how diverse they think their schools are.
There is a student survey that's given each year at the end of the year. I don't know if that covers the diversity portion of it. Do you know, Mr. Edie?
I don't recall the question, but I know there's also a comment survey that also goes out to employees. So maybe as part of the conversation, as the board goes forward, maybe that could be as a part of the recommendation. Any surveys that are distributed to employees or students include questions or questions related to diversity awareness.
And inclusion, yeah.
Okay.
Diversity and inclusion. Because we can be diverse as we want to be, but if people aren't welcome at the table, then it means nothing.
And I think our number 2 goes along with there.
Yeah, we should probably marry those.
Probably marry those, yeah, we probably marry.
Say your number 2 again?
We're talking about student assignment and quality.
Okay.
I think we can put those 2 together.
So we want to roll in, if I'm understanding correctly, adding some diversity and inclusion questions to the current staff and student surveys that go out annually. So is there a motion for that?
I believe so.
The way I see it, there are three components: the survey, education, and recruitment. In other words, the survey will include the ability continuum, the issues of California, all those could be put together. Then there's the education component, then there is the recruitment faculty, and we had also the student program. That's a lot. I can compress the most.
Well, I would suggest we start with the survey to get some information and then move into those other pieces.
Right. The survey will include those other pieces too.
Okay. So the motion is to include diversity and inclusion on the surveys that go out to staff, personnel, and students.
That include Islamophobia, health,
Disability, mental and physical.
We can work on the specifics next. I think that's what we really want to do is hone down and what we want to include in the survey.
Correct.
And it would be nice to see what they get currently so that we can expand upon that.
Okay. So is there a motion to add these questions and ideas to the current survey?
The motion was to combine some of those things to the diversity survey, the recruitment, and to the education. Then we discuss it.
Well, Mr. Williams started with the survey.
That's right.
So we want to focus on adding what he suggested, some of the information, the inclusion parts to the survey.
That's right.
Okay. So there's a motion to add these parts to the survey. Thank you. Is there-
Actually, for purposes of clarification, can you be very specific in what the motion, because what I'm hearing is, Mr. Williams made a motion that we would include as a recommendation, diversity and inclusion questions to any surveys provided to stakeholders or constituencies. But we really made a suggestion of trying to combine all those elements. Technically, from Robert's rules, the humanity of the main motion on the floor is not technically amended. So unless there's an amendment to the main motion, the motion on the floor that was seconded is Sean's motion. And so I want to make sure in the minutes, we're very clear. And
Let's do the third motion.
okay, yes, sir. Just want to make sure we're clear from our standpoint, right?
Because from what I understand with the diversity and inclusion, that includes some of the Islamophobia, that also includes some of the disabilities. It's kind of all together.
And also we can work that into the results of that survey to benefit, the school assignment.
And I think we work out the details next week.
Right. Okay.
So the next meeting, the overarching recommendation and survey, the committee, the next meeting will then go and do a deeper dive into elements of that survey.
Yes.
Or question, I should say.
Okay. That's one. Do we have one more recommendation that we'd like to focus on?
I call the vote on the motion.
Oh.
I didn't even hear a second.
No, I thought she said. So all in favor of the motion? Aye. Any nays? Okay, thank you. So then going on to our second recommendation. Do we have anyone that has a preference, one they feel strongly about, one they think we should move with?
We had the diversity recruitment of teachers, which we've talked about a lot in our.
And promotion. Recruitment and promotion.
Did you have one?
I think they have mentioned something about the involvement of parents, of different, diversities, background, disabilities. That's also, I think it's a great thing that we can encourage it, how we can constitute it in the school.
Okay, so speaking about that, in our last meeting, one of the things we came up with as a suggestion was involving community leaders with communication, having them participate in some school things, us go out and meet with community leaders to try to bridge that gap between the schools and the families. So maybe we can have that as an idea, is involving the community leaders to bridge that gap between the schools and the community. because maybe they can reach them in a different way that what we're doing currently is not working. We have the website, we have the text messages, we have Peach Jar, we have Parent Link already going out in multiple languages. And if that's not working, maybe community leaders have something else that we're missing that they can bring to us. Does that make sense?
Just as an update for the committee, Mr. Chairman, so you all are aware, I'm not sure if it's going through the process yet, but Irma Lancaster has recently completed an interview process to hire a coordinator, she mentioned it at the last meeting, a coordinator for community engagement. So to the good doctor's point, that would be an opportunity of something that is of high salience and low complexity. So right now, people are talking about how can we alter the communication strategy with community engagement. So if the board would consider something like that, that's would give some perspective to he or she, whoever is selected as the person in charge of community engagement. No one has come on board officially yet, so that could be just letting you all know kind of some things that happen in the background. That is a person who's coming in, so that'd be a way of giving some recommendations germane to that position.
So I'd like to put a motion to consider that discussion next week.
So the motion would be, I guess, figuring out ways to involve community leaders
Improve it
in the communication process
Yes.
with parents.
Yes.
That makes sense to everyone?
I'll second that.
So, the motion would be involving community leaders in the communication process with parents.
And the stakeholders.
All stakeholders.
Yes, I imagine, we have the last review is next month.
Yes.
All the years of you're always at the meeting, it's still like,
I think we should discuss that in April. If we don't get done, then we'll talk about the future. So I made the motion. Mr. Williams, seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. And then the last, we have a couple more things up. Mr. Edie, do an update, and Ms. Debbie's first, apologize. The board policy review.
Just for our new members, this is an item for your information and a refresher for our committee members that are here. Ms. Thomas passed out a copy of the community involvement opportunities for the board. At your leisure, I invite you to peruse through that to let you know what due diligence is required as a member of a publicly appointed board by our school board members. As referenced a little bit earlier, the board policy does stipulate the often occurrence of the meeting as well as when the new chair is elected. So your current committee leadership with our chair and our vice chair extends up until the very end of the meeting. However, the first meeting of the committee, there is always a cycling in and electing of new leadership. So that's the way the policy is structured. So I encourage you all to review that. I won't belabor the time and go through that step by step. And each person who's already a part of the board has that as a review, talking point if necessary. It also has a crash course in Robert's Rules of Order. I am not the ombudsman or the board parliamentarian, but my job is to try to help support as a liaison and support the chair. So if you ever see me kind of jump in for clarification, say, we're trying to ensure that we're following Roberts as close as possible. Luckily, I'm also a person who likes to read Roberts, and I keep it with me, but that's the purpose of, what was it? So that's the purpose of that. So you have an amended version of Robert's Rules, but we do try to follow that. In issues where Roberts is silent, we always deviate back to whatever the board policy provides. So for example, these meetings are conducted without a quorum because the board can provide. There's not a minimum number of individuals who can meet and have a discussion without being present at the quorum. It conflicts with Roberts, but it is applicable according to the policy. So just when you get an opportunity, please read through that at your leisure. But our job here is to make sure that we try to push it forward as much as possible of whatever the Robert says and whatever the board policy says. But because we have so many great new members that we're so glad to see, we thought it was in order to make sure everybody was aware and cognizant of the information that the committee received on the initial meeting for the year. With that, I will combine my report. It's great to see everybody. Welcome to our new members. And Crystal is unfortunately sick with the flu. So that's why she's not here with us today. And I encourage everyone to stay hyper vigilant as we are also in flu season. But of course, this little thing that I guess is getting a lot of coverage on the news. As Mr. Williams alluded to, there is a community forum as well as Mr. Mangan Our student services team will be having a conversation related to student code of conduct at the Dr. Kerry Robinson Center in partnership with the City of Fort Myers Housing Authority, as well as our partners in the NAACP. So for those that are available, Kerry Robinson Center, 6:30. 6:30, this Thursday.
Yes, the 12th.
That's all I have. Thank you.
And remember, and also in the policy, if you'll look at, Equity University Advisory Committee, so that will give you who you are. That tells you who you are, and what you're supposed to do. Just FYI. Okay, well, yeah, Jared already shared with you about the quarterly, the meeting that's coming up with Kerry Robinson. And of course, today, our chair, came, to the board, and gave his quarterly report, was given regarding EDAC today. And we were in meetings all day today. Started off with the Corona-19, and what's taking place with that, and the precautions and all the measures that we're taking, to make sure that everybody's safe. And then we just, had a lengthy conversation, discussing, student learning time. So all of this stuff is coming. So if you really want to listen to it, I suggest you go to YouTube and you can get all the information that, was spoken about and all the different options that they're looking at regarding the schools, high school and middle schools.
What's this stuff coming from Orlando?
Coming from
Orlando today.
Coming from here today.
From here, right.
And that's it. And thank you all for being here and
Thank you.
participating. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I do have a question, and it's sort of living over probably all of our, and especially kids, parents with kids in the system. What are we doing about the COVID-19 and the coronavirus, and what plan do we have in place if public health decides that they need to shut down schools?
Well, that's why I was asking, because I'm coming from my land day, they had a whole briefing today, exactly, that's why I was asking, but that's, I saw it live.
Right.
Yeah.
They had a meeting today.
Yes.
The superintendent was there as well. So
Yes,
the
he was.
sheriff's department
Yeah.
and everybody was together. We are getting daily updates on everything that's taking place. The cleansing of all the classrooms are going on, the cleansing of the buses that are going on. So we're doing all that, and I was just at a function this weekend with 750 kids, and they chose to have a non-handshake event. So we would have gone in, everybody would have been polite and did the handshake, and no one did that.
So are we ramping up our online curriculum or availability, or how are we ramping up in case our schools are closed, or our schools need to be emergency shelters for COVID-19 patients?
I don't, they didn't discuss our schools being that.
No, that wasn't discussed.
Yeah, that
Thank you for
definitely.
clarifying. I watched it live. Yeah.
So, yeah, that, we're getting, they're speaking every day. We have someone that, what's the health services, thank you. She's the one pulling that up. So, yeah, and then we're updating, as we get more information, it's going on our website and it is, so we're making sure that we have, yes, that you can, and you have the different languages there so people can get it. And then also too, the meetings that we have, we also offer interpreters. So that's something that we're trying to make sure that every time we go out in the community to share information, we have people who, Spanish and Creole right now. And they're there, they speak and they let you know that they're there in case you need them to interpret. So we're trying to make sure that we're, doing as much as we possibly can to get the word out to everybody. But this is gonna be updated, and it is on the website.
Anything for the good of the order?
In your report today, I forgot one of the most important things, that you went to South Fort Myers.
I would not steal the thunder from the chair.
Oh,
I stay in my lane.
So,
I would not steal that.
since Mr. Peter brought it up, Dr. Peter, we did go to South Fort Myers High School, and we did the tour with, Mr. Matthews. Ed Matthews, he's a principal there. And we got a pretty extensive tour. We did some touring of the Avid classrooms, the career academies, They have a lot of different programs going on there that are advantageous for the youth of today. I think the most impressive part was the Avid classroom that was full of all girls. It was an all-girls leadership class. And the girls were very well versed, they were very articulate, they had clear ideas about what they want to do for their future. They asked us important questions about their future. It was impressive. It was good to see a group of young ladies that were so prepared for what they were going to face in the coming years. And so I think that that's something we could add to EDAC responsibilities, is maybe once a year, just we pick a school to go visit. Because it was good to see, and it gives us a good idea of what's actually going on. So as we're making our suggestions, we have some feedback and we have some actual evidence to go on.
I would say, Mr. Chairman, thank you to Dr. Villalobos for bringing the idea. I didn't want to say anything because I know the chair was going to mention it. It was a part of his report to the board this morning. But thank you for coming back and making that suggestion and the community to responding to it. The schools are always open, and I know we have a principal in our midst, but they're always open to having people come and see the wonderful things they're doing on their campuses, because we have over 100 best kept secrets all across the district. So I think it was a great opportunity. So Dr. Peter, thank you for keeping student success in the forefront of our conversation.
And actually, may I just say, when you get to schools, please, keeping the vision in the region. And I just also add, 2 weeks ago, Crystal and I went to Oklahoma, and the business groups of kids, and we gave the principal an award for respect for diversity and inclusion, referencing to that, and we were nice thing. And just to add, on April 23rd, FDCU and African Network of Southern Florida, through the diversity programs, are recognizing all these programs that go well. Yeah, last year we banned and I wish you can come, and I hope you can put it. Just a short for
Remind us again our April 13th meeting.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I just have 2 things. Legislative session is wrapping up. There was one really terrible bill for diversity, House Bill 1059, Senate Bill 1634, would have increased the mandatory reporting for teachers, administration, and guidance counselors to basically out their students to their parents. And it did pass all 3 committees in the House, and it got put on the back burner on the Senate. So it is not going to the floor, and it will not go to the governor's desk. So I'm very happy for that, because unfortunately, if a parent finds out, usually, sometimes they can be bullied, they can end up taking their life, or they can actually be kicked out of their home because their values don't match their parents. So it did put certain kids at harm's way. Also, good thing for teacher recruitment and being able to attract a diverse teaching staff is Sadowski funds this year were fully funded. They did not sweep $1 of those. So I want to give the House, Representative Oliva, Speaker Oliva, and the governor and the senator. They did a wonderful job of making sure that those monies went directly to SHIP funds and getting housing assistance, getting the mortgages affordable for folks in our area. So I'm happy to report those 2 things.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Second? Thank you. See you guys April 13th.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
You must be trying. For a long time.
Oh, it's Thursday. It's Thursday.